Help appears to be on the way for the Milwaukee Bucks, who get set to take on the Boston Celtics later today. The return of Giannis. We dig into it next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia. You can hear me on the Bucks Radio Network each and every game. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day, and for helping make the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network in the industry. The good news for the Bucks appears Giannis Antetokounmpo is set to return tonight against the Boston Celtics. We had repeatedly heard from Doc Rivers it was, quote, close. I had started to hear quite a bit of optimism from those that get a chance to see a little bit more behind the scenes that it was going to be very soon that this occurred. I think there was a lot of, maybe not surprise, but it felt like it was trending towards possibly Friday against the Knicks. So either way, you viewed it as, I think he's either back tonight or he's back Wednesday night in a huge one against the Atlanta Hawks. It sounds like it's tonight. The injury report that was submitted by the Bucks lists Giannis as questionable, which is still, a 30% chance of playing if we played by the numbers, at least what it's intended to do. So let's keep an eye on that later on today and see if questionable gets bumped up to probable at some point between now and 4:45 is when we're going to hear from Doc Rivers a little bit later on today in that matchup with the Celtics. Boston, by the way, as of this recording, and actually let me pull up the most recent injury report. So I'm taping this in the early afternoon here. Boston has still not submitted this as of 1 o'clock Milwaukee time. So we have not seen an injury report for the Boston Celtics just yet. They played last night a home game against the Philadelphia 76ers. So this is day 2 of a back-to-back for both the Bucks and the Celtics. The Bucks just had to bus from Chicago to Milwaukee, and they played in the afternoon. Boston is flying from the East Coast into Milwaukee, so they have the advantage there. Now, Celtics play somewhat similar schedule to the Bucks. They're on Wednesday, their next matchup, then Friday at home, and then they depart for a 3-game road trip, which is Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday of next week. Cleveland, San Antonio, Oklahoma City. So huge schedule coming up for Boston. That Wednesday game against the Charlotte Hornets team that is currently 1 spot in front of the Bucks in the Eastern Conference standings. So you do wonder if this is going to be viewed as a rest day, basically, for the Boston Celtics, and what that injury report is going to look like. We don't have it just yet, but we'll keep an eye on that throughout the course of this afternoon as well. But with Giannis, we assume returning, there's not only the update to the injury report as questionable, but Shams Charania also seeming to indicate that Giannis is going to be back and make his return today after a 5-week absence. January 23rd is the last time we saw Giannis. And again, one of the points that I've made on the radio show and a few other places here is, it's really a glass half full, glass half empty approach here. You can say the glass is half empty. The Bucks have lost back-to-back games, and they lost both of those by more than 20 points. I'm not going to sit here and say it's a good thing. The last 5 losses for this team, 4 of the 5 have been by 20 or more points. In those 5 losses, they've been outscored by 127 points. That is not good. To be losing by an average margin of 25 points this late into the season. And, for all of, if you're clinging to optimism and saying, well, Giannis being back, this is the catalyst that's going to drive a lot of this, it may change some of that. It's also going to be a big adjustment for everyone involved, for Ryan Rollins, for Kevin Porter Jr., for Giannis, too, with a team that is, basically for over a month now, learned and tried to learn how to play without him. That is going to be an adjustment for all parties here. But, all these teams that we've tried to point to and say, can the Bucks be this group? Can the Bucks be, to a lesser extent, right, this version of last year's 2 years ago Pacers, where they just went on this run? Last year's Pacers. 3 years ago, the Celtics, and what they did after January 1st. For every moment that you see where it feels like that, the one thing, if you're not in the camp that believes in that, is those loss numbers that I just mentioned. Your last 5 losses has been by 127 points. That's not good. You don't need me to tell you that. And you know what's missing from the resume of all of those teams that, you know, the Celtics and the Pacers and any other team that's gone on a run, what's missing from their resume is a high volume of those types of losses. And the Bucks have unfortunately just had way too many of those. Now, will Giannis cure all that? Who knows, right? But that's the one thing that you would point to and say, man, they're still not. That's not what you'd like to see at this point in the season. Ironically enough, they did win the new math total in that loss to the Chicago Bulls, where they actually got up 8 more true shot attempts than Chicago. And what they've done there is now proven once again with Washington Wizards, still last in the NBA, but now within striking distance of maybe moving up to 26th overall. It's still not great. And that's going to be the big thing to keep an eye on is how do things look differently tonight? Because if Giannis is back, Giannis is going to start. And we heard Doc Rivers basically hint at, starting lineup's probably going to change. So what exactly is that change? What do we think it'll be? We'll take a look at that coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. March is a time to celebrate women, especially around International Women's Day, and to recognize just how much they carry at work, in relationships, in families, and in all the unseen roles they step into every single day. It's easy to celebrate that strength, but it's just as important to make space for their emotional well-being. And honestly, that goes for all of us. Your well-being emotionally, it matters. Find support and feel lighter. Therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Sign up now and get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp. College basketball is nonstop. You got big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. Now FanDuel is giving you the way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want. Rivalry games, ranked matchups, anything that's on the board. Mix in spreads, totals, player props, and watch how much you see the slate starting to play out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, with more up behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sits open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. But here's the stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates that check all your boxes. It means less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. So we heard after a tough one yesterday to the Boston Celtics, Doc Rivers very displeased. Camille went through some of the money quotes there from Doc Rivers in the post-game show yesterday. this morning, but it really focused on crappy basketball, as Doc put it, for way too much. And he praised the second unit, that unit helped them build up the lead, and the starter in turn then lost multiple 15-point or more leads. He singled in on the 15 specifically, and they lost two 15-point leads for us. There was a stretch in the second quarter. It couldn't have been more beautiful from that second unit. They were moving the ball around. He mentioned Bobby Portis and really liked the way that Bobby played and passing up some shots and getting things flowing offensively, and then added the first group came back in and did the exact opposite. His line, too, of I don't know if there's such a thing as basketball gods, but if there is, they were alive yesterday. And when you approach the game and play like that, you don't deserve to win. If we had won the game, I would be more upset. I would have taken the win because we needed it, but that's not the way you play basketball. And, he added to, basically, I guess we're going to have to reevaluate things. Like, it's tough when you see guys working their butt off defensively, and then you watch somebody come down and take a quick shot. Eventually, the dam is going to break, and after the second unit, I think if you read between the lines, he was displeased with his point guards, and again, kind of danced around, maybe we'll have to reevaluate that. So with Giannis returning, we think we're going to see another not necessarily new starting lineup, but a newer starting lineup, at least in terms of the last 15 games. How new and what does that mean? That's TBD. And by the way, as we now are recording this, the Celtics have just submitted their first injury report. Jason Tatum obviously out. It seems like he's returning on Friday. Jason Tatum is out. Neemias Queta is out for rest purposes, and Jaylen Brown is out with an illness. So the Bucks with a prime opportunity in this game tonight. But it does sound like even without the Giannis news, Doc Rivers is maybe more open once again to saying, do we need to reevaluate the starting lineup? And I take that more so than anything else as, should we look at breaking up Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. once again? And especially if Giannis is going to be returning, those are your three ball handlers, and essentially, for all intents and purposes, those are your point guards, all three of them on the roster. It makes no sense to play that group together. So I do think we're headed towards another different starting lineup tonight, or at least newer in the form of the last 15 games. What that is anyone's guess. I was talking about it with Camille earlier today, and we were kind of both going back and forth of what if it's this? I honestly don't know. I think the only things that I feel like I do know are Giannis and Miles Turner are going to be in the starting lineup, and AJ Green, I would assume, is going to be in the starting lineup. But my thought initially is I kind of feel like we're going to see a starting five tonight of Kevin Porter Jr., AJ Green, Kyle Kuzma, Giannis, and Miles Turner. I think there's one thing that's clear, and that is the Bucks just have to continue to play with size. You have to put more size out there on the perimeter, especially when you look at your shooting guards and small forwards. That's oftentimes where the Bucks have really gotten crushed on the defensive glass, that the opponent has really come away with offensive rebounds there. Kevin Porter Jr. has done a great job, and Ryan Rollins on rebounding of late. And Darvin Ham talked about it too, that it has to be a collective group effort. It just, in this day and age, it can no longer just be your bigs that rebound. The guards have to get in there and do it as well. And I think those two have done it. But you got to play with more size out there. And whether that's, Kyle Kuzma, whether it's everyone's, I don't know if it's the new favorite toy anymore now that a little bit of time has worn off there, but Ousmane Dieng, he's still playing, but it doesn't seem like he's getting quite the same spot in the rotation. So I would be surprised if Ousmane Dieng gets slotted into the starting lineup. But on the flip side, you'd also love to see what Ousmane Dieng looks like with Giannis. So again, he's a free agent this summer. And if you believe there is something there, and I think we've at least seen some things from, you're going to have to pay him. So let's see how this works in theory with Giannis as well. If that is still the stated goal of let's make the playoffs and we're building a team that we're going to convince Giannis, your best shot is here, and we're going to continue to grow this thing here. So I'd like to see some minutes of Ousmane Dieng and Giannis on the floor together and see how that works. I mean, at this point, we laughed it off months ago, and I just didn't think, frankly, you could do it. At this point, who cares? Let's see. Can you play Giannis and Jericho Sims together? It is a tough fit because Jericho's a roller and there's no, shot threat there. But you know what? Fine. Let's see what it does for the glass and the defense. If that moves the needle enough and you can get in transition, you should be open to everything from this point forward if you're the Bucks. But that's the latest on this. It sounds like Giannis is going to play. He's been upgraded to questionable. And again, the messaging coming from Shams Charania seems to indicate that the belief is Giannis will make his return tonight. 8-7. To go all the way back to the beginning of the show when I said the glass half full versus glass half empty approach. The half empty is, man, they lost back-to-back games by 20 points, and they looked about as bad as you could. The half full approach is they've won 8 out of 12 games. They went 8-7 in this stretch without Giannis, which, again, if you did that earlier in the season, they're I think 11-18 in games without Giannis now. I mean, if you did that earlier in the season or just around there, and if we're talking about a team that instead of being 11-18 in these non-Giannis games, if you were something like 14-15, right? That basically 500. If that's the case right now, you're 29-30, and at that point, you're tied with the Charlotte Hornets for that final spot in the play-in tournament. You're a game up on Charlotte and Atlanta in the loss column. You're just a game back of Miami in the loss column. And, even more, you're 3 games back of Philly in the loss column to get out of the play-in tournament. So, look, that's all lost behind you. That's the unfortunate part, but it just goes to show you how many times we talked about earlier this season, man, losses like that, that's what's going to come back to sting you. We've said it a handful of times. And I'm not expecting you to win every single one of those games, but you look back at some of those games. This game yesterday, especially, to lose to a Bulls team that had not won since January 31st, that did not have 6 rotational players available for that game yesterday, all ruled out, that already traded away Nikola Vucevic, already traded away Kobe White, already traded away Ayo Dosunmu. That's a game you have to win. Like other games, the Wizards, to lose the amount of games you lost to the Wizards this season, the Sacramento Kings home game, even a better team, but that Houston Rockets loss at home where you controlled for a large portion of the game and let it slip away. The Bucks have had far too many of those games this season where the truth is always somewhere in the middle. I think the reality is the Bucks are probably a team that wins 40% of those games, maybe slightly less. And again, that puts you right around 500, which is kind of what this team feels like throughout the course of the season. If 500 is going to get you in the playoffs, play postseason, 500 may even get you directly into the playoffs. But unfortunately, that's not where you are because of the way that you played in those games. And now it just means you're going to have to win it basically, from here on out with 23 games remaining. Realistically, the worst the Bucks can do and feel like we got a shot is going to be 14-9. Even then, I don't know that 40 wins is going to get you there anymore. Charlotte's 30-31. Atlanta's back to 500 for the first time in months. It may now be a 42 is what you're shooting for. And then if that's the case, 16-7 is what you're looking at. Either way, you're going to have to win twice as many games as you lose from here on out. That has to be the approach. And again, especially after those last 2 performances, but especially yesterday, you're going to have to steal games. And now with this injury report, it's an opportunity to steal a game against a 40-win team in the Boston Celtics. Again, no Neemias Queta, no Jaylen Brown, no Jason Tatum. So how do the Bucks respond tonight? We'll find out. What time is it even? We'll find out 10 hours from now, basically. But 4:45 is when we hear from Doc Rivers, and we'll get a sense on what the status is of Giannis and whether or not tonight is the night that he makes his return, potential starting lineup changes as well. All of it is going to come out just before 5 o'clock this afternoon. That will do it for today's show. Camille will be back tonight along with Frank to give you the post-game recap of this Bucks and Celtics matchup. And make sure you check out the Everydayer Club as well. You get ad-free episodes of Locked On Bucks. You get access to the Discord server as well. And not just Bucks Discord. You can check in all the other teams and the general NBA Discord server as well. Find the link to sign up on your screen there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also get it in the show notes of today's episode. That's going to do it for today and your preview of today's matchup with the Boston Celtics. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.